Hey guys, welcome back to another AFL Fantasy video. In today's video, we'll be going through episode 4 of reviewing your teams. If you haven't seen episode 3, I posted it earlier on today, so make sure you go and give that one some support. 91% of you are not subscribed, so just make sure you hit the subscribe button down below because I want to get some more subscribers on this channel. So thanks so much for all the support you guys have been giving me, and let's hope to continue to grow this channel throughout the preseason. So let's get into the first team. First team here was sent in by Lockie. Let's get into the back line. Back line, you got D1, you've got Lloyd. I think he's pretty much a must-have at this stage. He's going to be the number 1 scoring defender, and he comes in underpriced as well. I think he'll lift his average to around 110, and I think he'll benefit from the kick-in rule, as well as your D2. I think Sicily will benefit from the kick-in rule as well. He's got a massive kick on him, and he's very precise as well. So I think Hawthorn will want to utilise his kicking coming out of the back line. So I think he'll also be a top 6 defender. So he's another good option there. Then you've got Hamish Hartlett as sort of an underpriced option. I do like Hamish Hartlett. I think for what his potential is, I think he's definitely underpriced. I just don't see him reaching his potential again this year. Then you got Brodie Smith there. I think Adelaide are going to try and use him as the escape out of the back line this year. With the kick-in, so I think he'll benefit from that. Going in very underpriced. So I think he will take some points off Laird, so that's why not many people are going with Laird this year. Then you got McGrath at D5, so you're spending up in the back line, looking at a lot of underpriced options. I think McGrath could be one of those breakout contenders, push into the top 6 defenders. However, I do like Williams over him at less price, so that's one thing you could look at doing. I probably like McGrath more than Hartlett though, so look, maybe Hartlett down to Williams would be a nice option there. There's other options around Hartlett and McGrath's price, so such as Newman and Luke Ryan, who I think will probably do a little bit better than those two. Anyway, you got Quaynor, Wigg, and then Brown on the bench in the back line. I think you might need Collins as well. I think he's going to be a good rookie in the back line. So maybe you could possibly downgrade a Hartlett to a Collins, then downgrade a McGrath to a Williams, then you'll have a lot more cash to spend elsewhere. Anyway, let's get into the midfield. You've got Cripps at M1. I think he'll be a very good selection this year. He's priced at 110. I think he can lift that average to 115 this year and be in the top 2 or 3 midfielders. Then you got Clayton Oliver at M2. With Oliver, it's an interesting one. He's had shoulder surgery over the summer, and 2 weeks ago, Melbourne said that he'll be getting back to full training load in 2 weeks, and the 2 weeks is up, and he's still not doing full training. So I'm just not very confident in Oliver. I think he's more of an upgrade target now. So just watch with that and see how he goes throughout the JLT. Then you got Power Pepper there at M3. I haven't got it in price order, so he's actually at M4 there. But I do like Power Pepper. I think he could be a possible breakout option in the midfield. However, I do like Brad Crouch, who's a little bit cheaper than Sam Power Pepper, and he's been a proven scorer before where Power Pepper hasn't. Then you've got at M4, you got Neil there. I've talked about Neil in episode 3 a fair bit. I think that with Neil's move to Brisbane, I'm not sure whether he's going to... He will have a great... a great massive role at the Brisbane Lions, but I don't think he's going to get his scoring back to the 110 days, what he did at Freo, but I think he could possibly be a 105 to 107 averager. So he's only 5 points underpriced, average at 100. So I think there's other options around his price, such as Zach Merritt there, who you don't have, who has potential more upside with his scoring. Then you've got Walsh at M5. And then you've got Libber and Miles as sort of underpriced players there. I do like those two, Libber and Miles. I think Libber, he'll probably play in the doggies midfield and could push for an 80 to 90 average I'm looking at with him at the moment. So at his price, he's one of those players it's really hard to leave him out of your starting squad. Miles, He's moved to Gold Coast, and I think that his scoring could increase due to that. He's going to have a great a massive responsibility at the Gold Coast now this year. I think he can push for an average of 90 plus, and what he's priced at, he'll be a great value pick. You've got Bennell there. I'm not 100% sold on him. You'll have to watch and see if he actually is going to play, but if he does, I'm not against teams starting him. You got Riley, Collier Dawkins, and then Hind on the bench there. In the rucks, you've gone with Grundy and then Darcy Fort. So I've seen Darcy Fort at R2 in a couple teams, and obviously with Darcy Fort at R2, that's how you've got the money to spend up quite big in the back line there. So I don't mind Darcy Fort as an R2 option if he gets some games. Oh, I've just seen on the bench there, you've got Shane Mumford. Now, this is a very interesting strategy. I've only seen a couple teams doing it, so it's very unique, but I do think it could pay off. So potentially if Darcy Fort gets games in the first couple weeks, he could be a really big cash cow, and he might only score maybe 60 to 70 or maybe 50 to 70, but with Shane Mumford coming back in, I think it's round 3 or 4, Shane Mumford coming back in, you could put him on your field and then Darcy Fort as your bench option. I do like that plan. However, I do like starting English. I like that more. And then English, you can go to Mumford if he doesn't pay off, because I think English could be higher scoring than Mumford. But we'll just have to wait and see how they go and if Darcy Fort does get any games. In the forward line, you've got Dangerfield. Every team pretty much has him. Then you've got Heaney. Heaney's an interesting one. He's averaged about 90 to 95 pretty much most years he's been in the AFL. But I think this year could be the year where he gets increased mid-time and goes up to average 100 to 110. And he could be one of the top 3 scoring fours this year. So he could be a well worth selection. But on the other hand, he could just go back to what he's been doing with his 90 to 100 average every year. Then you've got Warple. Now, Warple, I really like the selection of Warple. He's been in and out of my team. I think he's going to have lots of midfield time this year with Tom Mitchell going down. I think Warple will be the major beneficiary of Mitchell's midfield time. So I think he could be a really good option in the forward line, possibly pushed to be a top 6 to 8 forward by the end of the season. Then you've got Setterfield. I can't even see that player there. And then you've got Kavara. Then you've got Parker and McAdam. I think... I can't even see that player there. Bit blurry. Anyway, thanks Lockie for sending in your team. I really liked the picks, how you've sort of gone ballsy with Hartlett and McGrath. However, I think there's better options around their price, as well as Power Pepper in the midfield. Overall, Lockie, I'd give this team a 7.5 out of 10. And thanks for sending in your team. This team here was sent in by Brandon. So I can see you've got D1, you've got Lloyd, and then D2 Witherden. So you've got 2 sort of primo options that I think they're both going to jump their average by probably 5 to 10 points with the new kick-in rule alone. I think Witherden, just based on how he's been going, I think he'll improve as well and probably be in the top 4 or 5 defenders by the end of the season. Then you've got D3, you've got Luke Ryan. There's been a stat that he could possibly increase his points by 13 points just based on the kick-ins, because he did take the most kick-ins for Freo last year, but he only played on 1% of the time. Now, this only changes to like 60 to 80% of the time, because I think players will be playing on, like there's no point not playing on. So if Luke Ryan still gets that kick-in role, he could increase his points on 13 points alone, which will get him to a safe 90 average. So I think he could push to be in the top 6 or 8 defenders, as well as Newman there. You've got it D4. I think he can push to be in the top 6 or 8. With his role at Carlton, we're not really sure what it's going to be at the moment, but he's shown at the Swans how he's really piggish. He really wants to get points, and we can see by his junior numbers that he loves getting the peel. So if he gets a fantasy-friendly role at Carlton, I think he could push to be in the top 6 defenders there. Then you've got Williams as another underpriced option. I think he can lift his average to around... He's coming back from injury, and he played 2 games last year. in the finals. He came back and just for the finals and got like a 120 or something. So I think he's an absolute lock. He's 20 points underpriced. So then you got Collins as the rookie on the field, and then Burgess and Hoare. So that backline is one of the best backlines I've seen. Some people hate on the Ryan pick, but personally I think he's one of the better picks, underpriced picks in the backline. So I really like that backline. Then let's get into the midfield. You've got McRae and Cripps as the two sort of big scorers there. I really like McRae. I don't really like McRae at the moment. I'm just worried about that he's gonna decrease his average because the taggers will start to go for McRae because they didn't really go for him last year, but he's probably the number one tagging option of the Dogs now. I think Bont sort of dropped off a bit, so I think McRae will start getting attention from taggers, and I don't think he'll lift his average. So if anything, he could probably keep his average to a 120. He could still probably be the top scoring midfielder, but I think there's just more value around to like pick. So paying 890,000 for a player that you don't think is going to maintain that price, I don't see it as a viable selection. Anyway, you've got at M2 Paddy Cripps. I think how he could lift his average in price to I think he can lift his average to a 115 this year. I think he's going to have massive responsibility at the Blues, but he's also going to have help in the midfield this year with Gibbons coming in. I think he's a contested ball winner as well as Cripps. That'll only help him out. Then you got Fife there. I'm not sold on Fife. He's always been more of a super coach option there, but I'm not. There's players around his price such as Merritt and Adams, who I think will score a lot more than Fife this year. Anyway, then you got Neil at M4. I think Neil, the move to Brisbane might help him out, but it might not as well. So, he's priced an average of 100. I don't think he's gonna go back to the 110 days. Anyway, I've talked about him. Let's get into. Then you've got Dusty Martin there. I think he is underpriced, priced at around 90, but I think he won't go back to his 2017 days like people are saying with the inclusion of Tom Lynch, because the inclusion of Tom Lynch means that Dusty will probably get a bit more mid-time than he did last year. However, I don't see him just jumping back into his 27 days of averaging 110. I think he'll be closer to averaging the 90 than he did last season. So I think he'll probably be a 95 to 100 averaging player. So there's other players around his price that are better options that could be top 8 midfielders, whereas Dusty Martin I don't think will be. You've got Reece Conker there. It's an interesting one. Oh, you've said here you've downgraded Reece Conker to Charlie Constable. So yeah, that's a good trade there. So you've got 3 rookies in the mid. You got Welsh, Bewley, and then Constable, and then you got Hayes and Hind on the bench. There's starting to be a lot more midfield rookies, so it's starting to be. I think it'll be more popular to run 2 or 3 rookies rather than just one in the midfield. In the rucks, you've gone with Grundy at R1 and then Ford at R2. Now, Ford is a risky one. Teams are starting to do it more frequently now, but I just don't see that he's, without having the backup option of, say, a Mumford on the bench, I don't think he's going to be a good selection because he may be getting that number 1 ruck spot at Geelong, but I think that he could chop and change that ruck spot at Geelong, so I don't think he'll be in for too many games, so I think he's more of a bench option. But as I've said, with saying that, I do think if we see throughout the JLT, he's definitely going to be the number 1 ruck at Geelong. He could be a season changer and a very good selection there. You got Dangerfield at F1 there. I think he's a must-have. I've already talked about him. Then you got Heaney, starting to be more popular now. I've talked about him already, so I think he could be a good selection. Interesting one, you got Darcy Moore there. I'm not sold on him 100%. I don't really like key forwards in AFL Fantasy. So, yeah, if anything, I think you should upgrade him to a Warple around his price, or even go a bit higher in a wing guard, or get another primo like Dunkley in there. I think that would be a better option. And then you've said you've gone here Corbett up to Charlie Curnow. Another sort of key type of forward there. I don't know if that's a good trade. I'd prefer you kept the 3 rookies in the forward line and then you went Darcy Moore up to a Dunkley or someone around Dunkley or Menegola or Devon Smith or someone. Because overall, Brandon, I really like your team. With the Fife and Dusty picks, I'm not really sold on them, but your defense is one of the best I've seen so far. So with all that said, I'd give your team an 8 out of 10. So yeah, thanks for sending in. The last team here was sent in by Ryan. Let's go to the back line. You've got Lloyd there and Witherden. I think they're 2 underpriced guys and will be in the top 3 or 4 defenders by the season end, so they're good picks. You've got Newman and then Williams at D4. Now, this is starting to be a really popular backline, pretty much identical to what I'm running at the moment. However, you do have Hanley. I didn't see old Piercy there. Piercy has been going under the radar this preseason. He's priced very low, and I think if he starts to get a good fantasy-friendly role in at the Gold Coast this year, I think he could push to a 90 average. But I think there's better options around his price in the backline this year. Then you've got Collins, Burgess, and Goddard as the rookies. Let's get into the midfield. You've got Cripper as your leading midfielder there. I really like that selection. I think Cripps is going to be one of those players that could really burn you if you don't start him this year. Then you've got Matt Crouch there. Consistency is the key with Matt Crouch. He's just so consistent and reliable. It's good to have that one player in the midfield who every week is going to get you that 110, 105 that you really want. So that's good with Matt Crouch. Then you've got Lockie Neal. Now, Neal is another one of those consistent guys, but he's not as consistent. He's not as a high consistency as Matt Crouch. I think he'll go around the 100 as what he did last year. I've already talked about him, but lots of people are starting to jump on Neal, but I just don't see as much upside as other mids. Then you got Brad Crouch at M5. I like how you've gone with value when Brad Crouch. Then you got Miles and Libba. So Crouch, Miles, and Libba are starting to be the 3 mid prices in the midfield that you think that everyone is thinking they're going to be the best options there. With the news about Hanbury's hamstring, he's out for 4 weeks, so he's out of training for 4 weeks. So I think that Crouch, Miles, and Libba are going to be those 3 mid prices we're going to see lots of teams starting with. Then you got Walsh and Hind as the rookies on the field. Then Bewley and Constable there. Then you've got in the rucks, you've got Grundy and Timmy English, and then Fort and Sweet on the bench. I like that setup. I really like English. I think he can push for an average of 80 to 90 and be a really good money-making selection at your R2 spot. Then you got in the forward line, you got Danger. I think most teams are really starting with Danger. He's underpriced. And it's really lucky that we have him as a forward line option this year. So I think teams are just really making the most of that. Then you've got Dunkley and Heaney. Those 3 primos there, Danger, Dunkley, and Heaney, are the ones that I'm starting with at the moment. I think Dunkley has a lot of upside and could, if he averages to what he did in the second half of the year, which was something ridiculous like 110, he could be a very good option and pushed for Danger for that number 1 or 2 spot there in the forward line. I'm a little bit concerned about with Libba coming back in, but Dunkley's in the top 3 midfielders in the Dogs, I would have thought, so I don't think he's going to push him out of that midfield. You got Heaney there, and then Warple. I like Warple. I think he can push for a 90 average this year, as I've already said. He's going to have lots of responsibility with Mitchell going out of that midfield. I think he's the one that will fill that spot. And then you got Setterfield and Kavara as the rookies, and then Parker and Corbett. In the forward line, I actually do like the 3 sort of rookie setup instead of having 2 rookies there. However, you do only have 1 rookie in the back line, so that's okay to have 2 in the forward line there. So you've only actually got 1, 2, 3. You've only got 5 rookies starting on your field, which is really that means you've gone really big on mid prices. So you've got Miles, Libba, Crouch, Williams, Hanley, Newman, and then Warple and English. So you've got a lot of mid prices there, but realistically, when I look at your team, I think maybe only maybe 3 or 4 of them will pay off in the end. But I do like how you've gone pretty ballsy with mid prices. So I'd have to give this team an 8 out of 10. I really like your structure. Yeah, so thanks for sending in your team. Alright, thanks guys for watching episode 4 of Reviewing Your Teams. Again, make sure to send me your team if you haven't, and if you want to be featured in episode 5. And make sure you subscribe and hit the bell for post notifications, because I'll be doing lots of more videos throughout the preseason. So thanks again for watching episode 4. If you haven't seen episode 3, go check that one out, and I'll see you guys in the next one.